Hey guys, I'm Cory Procter, owner of Pro Capital Wealth Management. I played in the NFL for 6 years as an offensive lineman with the Detroit Lions, Dallas Cowboys, and Miami Dolphins. My career ended in injury, like so many do. A lot of surgeries later, I had to face the next step in life, all right? And so I ended up starting my own firm, helping people out with their portfolios with families and businesses. And so it's been a really great deal for me. I'm sitting here with James and Matthew right now. We're a couple of attorneys that I trust a lot. And what we wanted to do today is kind of come into a conversation and really deal with some hot topics or problems that we face as players or as people with high caliber or high profile positions. Because a lot of times when those come up, a lot of new problems come into our life that we don't necessarily shift with, but we need to anticipate. And today, when we're having this conversation, we're at the Star here in Frisco, Texas, at Formation, in an amazing building. But we wanted to have a really first-class kind of conversation with you guys. But I'll let these guys kind of go into what they do overall and in your law practice. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Cory. And I'm James Davidson, and along with my brother Matthew Davidson, we are the founding and principal attorneys of Davidson Law Group. And at Davidson Law Group, we're a estate planning and asset protection firm. We focus on helping families take wealth and steward it generationally and create what we consider a legacy.
Yeah, I mean, what we really have a passion for is just to help people, especially people that we're going to be talking about today that maybe came into wealth when they didn't have it before, but really advise them on how to take what they've worked so hard for and deal with it in the most tax efficient way, and then hopefully leave a legacy that will change their family for generations.
That's good. What I like having this conversation with guys is when we're dealing with somebody with kind of like a meteoric rise. We have high fame, high profile, high income, money is involved in your life, things change. And they did for me in a big way. I only made minimum 5 out of my 6 years playing football, but I'm 10 years removed from the game right now. And because I had a great person in my life to help with my money and my advice that I was taking, I'm in a way better place today than I ever was playing in the league. And so these guys have a similar story, but this goes for anybody who's not just an athlete, but especially when you're a high profile position. Everybody knows what you make. And I don't really like that, but it's out there for the world to see. And when they see it, you have a lot of wolves come out. And the issue is it's not always the ones you don't know, but a lot more often than not, it's the ones you do that you got to watch out for. And a lot of times we give more responsibility to people that we love and we trust, which is great, but they don't have experience in that area, and so they're not fully tested in how to handle that. And I'll tell you from my experience why I came into that. I had a mentor when I was playing ball, and this dude was awesome. Ended up hooking me up with his financial advisor, and she did great for me. Right? She watched out for me. She protected my stuff. Looked out for my best interest, and had a lot of experience in that practice in that area of life. And so because of that, man, I was the kind of guy that poked her to death with questions, right? And so because I did that, I ended up learning myself up in a big way and ended up becoming really proficient in my money, in my portfolio. And so I developed a passion for that in wanting to help guys understand what the league gave them, right? Our accounts from there, how they operate, what it means, what does the IRS regulate on those, or just understanding them, and then understanding going forward, where can we move, and the possibilities and the pitfalls, the pros and cons, or any of those kinds of things. But I like dealing with these guys because they're similar to us. They might not have been in the NFL world, but they have their own story of coming into a high place where now we have to filter how people coming into our life in a different way. And really, when you do that, it's a great place to be, but it's also some different questions you have to ask. And so anyways, you have to guard yourself in a different way. But I wanted to share some topics. We wanted to bring some topics to you guys that are common in those types of situations you might deal with. I guess I'll let you guys jump into it. first, or you might have a comment, but do you have a topic like off the top of your head that kind of jumps out first, like as you guys were coming through that in your life?
Well, yeah, and speaking on personal and professional experiences, and as estate attorneys, we deal a lot with high-profile, high-net-worth individuals, and like I said, drawing on our own personal experiences. A lot of times, when you're just injected into this new situation where you have more money that you've ever had, more fame that you've ever had, like you said, the wolves come out, right. And so you have to be, to some degree, your own advocate and learn that you separate what is personal and what is professional. And really understand that in order to advance yourself and keep moving in that advancement, you have to have true professionals in your corner that know the arena that you're in, whether it's legal or whether it's wealth management or managing intellectual property, whatever that is. You have to have true trusted professionals in your corner that have skin in the game. Right. And as attorneys and licensed advisors, we are subject to federal and state laws, and we have fiduciary and legal duties to our clients where we have to act in their best interest. Otherwise, we're subject to civil and criminal penalty and oftentimes can lose our license. And so you want to make sure that you have people in your corner that know what they're doing, are willing to teach you and bring you alongside and inform you so that along with your trusted professional, you can make informed decisions about your life, about your wealth, about your family, and have those people that you can really trust.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's right on. And specifically where we fit into that is, a lot of times you're a young NFL athlete, you maybe feel invincible, like most of us did in our 20s and our 30s. But what we do is we help people think about situations that they think might not occur. Like, what if I become incapacitated? What if I'm in a coma? Who's going to take care of my stuff? What if I pass away? How are things going to go to my family? How are my kids going to be taken care of? How is my spouse going to be taken care of? What about taxes, right? If you have this meteoric rise in wealth, maybe you never had to pay tax of any sort. And now all of a sudden you have 5 different types of tax that you might owe. Also, in these situations, you have a lot of people that come after you that may want to sue you, right? You become a target for that type of situation. So without having somebody like us in your corner, those become some major pitfalls. Now, Cory, I know that you have a passion for the same type of thing, for helping these young athletes. I know that your focus really is on what happens after after you're done in the NFL. How long is this money going to last? What are you going to do with this money? Can you talk a little bit about really where your focus is and your passion is to help these guys?
Yeah, I for me, I was a real frugal guy. I didn't come from huge wealth, and so I love talking with my mom and dad about it because they always talked about I never had a problem making money. It was holding on to it. That was the issue, right? And so I was kind of guy who just let it stack up in the bank when I was playing, and so until I got introduced to somebody who was actually worth the weight in their britches, if anybody knows what britch means. But forget what I was going. What was this? Go back.
Yeah. No, we're just talking about you earn money in the NFL. What are you going to do to make it last for you?
Oh yeah, make it last. So the good thing about that was, I put a lot of my money to work. And because of that, it ended up growing in an awesome way. And so, but what I was able to do is what I do with people right now is basically we look at what you're spending and what we're making and what we have and be like, how long is it going to last? Or like, when am I going to run out of money? Or am I going to run into a problem at some point? And I tell you, a really big issue people don't pay attention to is nobody prepares for winter. Mm-hmm. Nobody prepares for bad times. And you see this as an example in this pandemic where we had just over 50%, I believe it was, pre-pandemic, people were living paycheck to paycheck. And because of the pandemic, it's risen over 70%.
Wow.
Right? And so the issue is not that, hey, everybody's hoarding wealth to one side or whatever. The issue is people don't prepare for bad times. And the beauty of it is if you prepare for bad times and you understand the nuances and the behaviors of your money, you can give it an assignment, right? And so when I can give it an assignment and I prepared for that bad times, I can take advantage of opportunities that show up in bad times, right? Nobody prepares for a bad marriage. That's why I go to counseling with my wife ahead of time before we have problems, so we can manage the problems ahead of time.
Wow.
Right? That's a huge deal. Because ultimately, I don't want to fall victim to a 50% divorce rate.
Right.
I don't want to fall victim to anybody trying to steal my money. I don't want to fall victim to any of that. So therefore, it's my responsibility to understand what's going on in my life. And so that's why I want a teacher who's going to come and teach me about what's going on in my life. I want, if I'm going to talk to an attorney, I want somebody who teaches me about the law and teaches me about how to protect myself or about anything about my money, and not just, hey, trust me, right? It doesn't go just off trust. It goes, I trust in my spirit, but not just off word, okay? And so if I trust you in my spirit and you teach me how to understand this, I've immediately become a better weapon for myself and my family. That's what I want. And so that's ultimately what I share with my people, and what I want from them is to increase that weaponization of them. Right? If I just make you a better you immediately go out into the world and make the world a better place. And that's critical, right? Because now you're not getting ticked off at somebody that got over on you. You're building other people up, and you're able to call out bad things that are out in the world. You're able to correctly identify places that you should be instead. And that's a totally different place to be than on the other side, because we learn two ways, right? We learn on purpose or on accident. Guess which one hurts?
Right.
That's
Right.
On accident hurts. I don't want to win. I don't want to learn that way if I don't have to. So I'm going to talk to guys that have been down the road and who have had that experience already. And so that's kind of what I love about the beauty of my story is I've still made mistakes. I made some bad purchases. I've done some of those things, right? They're not I don't have a win every single time, but what I've done is I've always poked the bear to see what's going on. And because of that, I had a greater understanding of what was going on in my life. And I might not have known it at the time, but it ended up paying huge dividends in a big way. And so I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that's great. That's perfect.
No, I think that's really good. I think one of the great points that you made is the importance of being in control of your circumstances and your future, and directing that in a lot of ways, and being connected and being a part of that. So what are some examples that you've seen that have been detrimental to perhaps new athletes, where they give up too much control, or they're not involved with what is going on in their lives, or their circumstances, or the financial or legal matters?
I guess I'll give two examples, one financial, one legal. Is oftentimes, look, guys get approached with investment deals all the time, all the freaking time, right? And so, and that might be a restaurant, it might be a gym, it might be a bar, it might be a liquor, it might be all kinds of things, right? Everybody's got the next big thing, okay? And the reality of those actually hitting is actually very small. Restaurants and gym industries, I love them, right? 'Cause big boy likes to eat, okay? But there's two of the most volatile industries you can go into, and I don't want to discount anybody that's in those at all, because they're working. But if we don't understand it, oftentimes we get people that come to us that we trust and want us to jump into that, and we never question it. We never question the experience behind it. We never question the stewardship of that, right? And so if you came to me, hey, Cory, will you buy into this burger shop, which I have a buddy who had this exact example, would you buy into this burger shop? Your first question shouldn't be how much money is it going to make me. Your first question should be, what kind of experience do you have in that? That's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have any experience in burger shops and you're bringing that to me, well, I'm like, no, I'm not going to trust you in that. And so having some direct questions is a big deal. And if you don't know those questions, find somebody who does, that you trust. And so all of us at teams, we have player development reps that are there on the team that handle very intimate details. We got people, owners of our teams, coaches on our teams that have been through these things. Bank it off somebody like that, right? Who's been down further than you. The other one, legally, when I think of, is I know in situations where a guy has bought a house for his parents or for somebody they love, and they bring the deed into the house, or they bring the deed into the room, and hidden in the contract paperwork for the home is a full power of attorney. And so some of you guys might not know what it is, some of you do, but I know the ramifications of that. But if you guys go into that a little bit, and like what am I giving away when I let somebody have a full or even a limited power of attorney? What does that even mean for some of us that haven't heard that term potentially?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you give somebody power of attorney, you're basically giving them the ability to make decisions for your entire life.
Right. Legally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's nothing illegal about it. You signed it. They can invest your money. They can deal with your real estate. They can gift on your behalf. They can do basically everything that you would be able to do in a legal way with your money. Now, technically, they're supposed to do what's best for you, but manipulators manipulate,
right.
And they know how to justify things like that. So I think that goes to show what you were saying earlier about really having those trusted people in your corner. And before you do anything real estate wise, you should have an estate attorney look at all the documents. Before you do anything investment wise, you should probably have a wealth manager take a look at it. I think that's probably the lesson to take away there.
We had I was on a reality TV show one time because I was in a band when I used to play ball, and so I was the only one who went on this show, and they sent us the contract for the paperwork, and I remember I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. I was playing ball. I'm like, I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
And so I just knew I needed somebody else to look at this, and so through a friend, actually had an attorney out of Austin, Texas, who worked in that business or in show business. So I, through that name, sent it to him, and we had a nickname for him. I won't disclose his name, but he had a nickname for him. It was funny, but he ended up adding addendums or adding provisions in the contract to protect me,
right,
in a big way, and the team that I was playing for at the time. And so what was neat about it was they ended up, because I had these things, one, I was protected legally, like my rights, my individually, an ability to use my likeness and my name and my picture, right, all that stuff. But what was funny was that actually changed how people treated me on the show. So like I wasn't just some guy or some band member. I actually got to hang out with the rock stars.
That's cool.
So like, oh yeah, some like big name, old school rock stars. So it ended up being a really cool thing. But what honestly, and that kind of plays to a bigger lesson is when you walk through these avenues, and even if you don't have the questions, you talk to the right people and get to somebody who's in your corner.
Right.
You steward it the right way.
Right.
You end up protecting yourself, which allows you to grow past where you're currently at. And I think you unlock bigger opportunities when you walk through those in that manner.
Yeah.
And so that was a big deal. You just reminded me of that
Yeah,
story.
no,
That's a great story. That's really
100%.
good. That's really good.
Yeah.
And just to hit a couple more details, just personal stories that we've had with clients and with personal experiences. I mean, when you come into this type of money, we've hit it over and over and over again, but people will try to take advantage of you. And one of the ways that they might try to take advantage of you is, I'm sure you saw this, but you might have groupies. You might have,
I didn't necessarily have groupies. This guy.
Well,
You probably saw people that did.
People tried to come at me.
Right.
My groupies were like this. Well, other guys had this giant group of them.
But a lot of times people come into your life and they may want a relationship with you, and then they don't have the purest of motives. Right. And there are a lot of legal documents that can protect you from those people. And so that I have what I'm thinking of in mind. And that's definitely something that we've been able to help people with. Before, you were mentioning like the addendums and stuff. A lot of times people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And you found out something that you didn't know whenever you spoke with this attorney.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I was thinking of there.
That was good. I liked it when guys were like, listen, if I were you in this situation, this is how I'd walk through.
Right.
Right. Knowing what I know, if I were you, this is where I'd go.
Yep.
And
100%.
And if that came from a trusted source, that person has experienced that area, more often than not, I'll take some time to chew on it, and I'll go home and think about it, pray on it, whatever I need to do. But if I'm comfortable with that, more often than not, I'm going to go that route.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just think that's an important thing, is to not be emotionally driven in the decision making when we're talking about these important things, but it's to really kind of understand all the information that is at hand, and fully understand what is going to happen with what route we choose.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. Is there, I guess, is there any other topics that you guys think about, like, or a story that pops to mind for guys that are coming into these situations? Like when you talk about impure motives, right? A lot of people are coming out. We're just trying to protect against that, so we can release the ability to extend an awesome life, right? What is there? Do you have any other stories that pop out in your mind that are really kind of lessons that we can have?
Yeah, I think one for me is dealing with particular clients. One in mind is a professional athlete, and some of them are business owners, and they're men. And when they came to me, they were single, they were wealthy, good-looking guys, and they attracted a lot of women. And and at the point in time where they got in these relationships and they were began to be serious, and they started talking about the future, the clients in particular, they were in a lot of ways love-struck and weren't necessarily thinking objectively about how to protect themselves, how to honor their relationship, but to protect themselves for the future. And so in these situations, I sat down and I talked to them about particular planning points. And in one particular client, he decided to marry this girl that he was dating, and we set up the appropriate prenuptial agreements and different trust documents to make sure that relationship was honored, but that the client was protected, because he had blinders on in a lot of ways. And that's what's so important about having, and to kind of draw back on a point we already made, but having people in your corner to think objectively for you when you cannot for yourself, because you're so emotionally tied to the situation. And it's not about, people hear prenuptial agreements and they think, well, I don't want to plan for the divorce that's going to happen. It's not about that. It's about protecting yourself, because you never know what is going to happen. People change and circumstances occur, and you want to make sure that you have done the right thing to set yourself up for success in conjunction with your future spouse or your spouse. And so it's important to have people think objectively for you and give you good advice on how to plan for that.
It's a big deal, man. I think when we talk about any of this stuff, really, I think about going with the flow. I used to be a very go with the flow kind of guy, and it wasn't until honestly after football. And I just happened to have some really good characteristics coming through the game, but where I came into real purpose for my life. My faith is a huge piece of that, but it came into real purpose. And what that meant was I gained intentionality with every step that I started making, and when I did that, it allowed other areas of my life to flourish like they're supposed to. And I tell you, somebody asked me. Oh, actually, just yesterday, somebody was asking me, like, why do you do what you do? And I almost got fired up. Like, what are you talking about? Why do I do it? It's got to be obvious. Why, right? I steward my money in a way that allows me not to worry about it because I know what's going on with it, right? I do it in a way with my wife that allows her not to stress over this situation, and allows me to send my kids to events and athletics and other opportunities, because I know what's going on with it, right? And because I know what's going on with it, it allows me to live, and ultimately, if I want to give from a very powerful position, right? And I have a lot of people that love to share, love to give tithes to their church, or do or give to, or be philanthropic. and it's awesome. But if we don't know what we're giving from, it loses its power.
Yeah.
Right. A great amount of it, anyways. And so I love this because in that situation you're talking about with the a prenup, it's like, okay, I trust you. I'm going to do this, right? And this is great. I understand it, but this allows me to operate in my relationship where it should operate, right? And that's my wife and I as one together as we're moving on and we're gaining steam in each other's lives as that one being, right? And so I just like a lot of this because it's just, and when we understand these things, it immediately gives us more power in our lives. It just releases a whole lot of great things.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. And oftentimes, and unfortunately, we didn't experience it in this situation, but when you bring things like prenuptial agreements to the table with your future spouse, oftentimes that will kind of throw up the red flags if there are any, because you know if they're in it because they love you and it has nothing to do with your fame or your money or success, then they're going to have no issue signing that.
Right.
And if you move forward with that in mind, it allows you to focus on the relationship, and your mind doesn't go places where you think about, if you get in a fight and whatever happens, you don't start thinking about she's just with me for my money or she's with me for who I am. You can focus on the relationship and really steward that relationship forward. And so that's a good point.
That's good. It's good stuff.
Matthew, you got other topics, other stories you think that are relevant?
I mean, I know I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I like to really focus whenever I'm meeting with a client on the potential taxes that they might have to deal with now that they didn't have to deal with before. When you come into money like this, not only do you have to focus on income tax, right, which is all of a sudden you're earning money that puts you in a bracket like you never imagined you would be in, but also if you're investing, you have to worry about capital gains tax, right, which is something that a lot of people never had to think about before. You're starting to own real estate, so you have to think about property tax, which is something that you may have never thought of before. And then the big boy for those really high earners as pro athletes is the estate tax, right? So the government wanting to take 40% of everything that you worked so hard to earn after you die, and taking it away from your family. And so there's all kinds of mechanisms that we put in place in our documents to help protect against excessive income tax, excessive capital gains tax, learning about what are exemptions for property tax, and then doing certain types of trusts and other documents that help to make it where if you are not the invincible person that you thought you were and you tragically passed away, that your wife or your kids are not going to lose 40% of everything that you worked so hard to earn. So I can tell you that from some of our professional athlete clients and our business owner clients that this is the biggest piece. I mean, because a lot of times the cash isn't necessarily there. A lot of times there's a lot of value in real estate or in businesses or in intellectual property, or maybe it's a contract that you haven't fully earned it all yet. In those situations, you want to make sure that things don't have to be turned upside down and on their head for your family if you were to pass away. So I like to really focus on the tax piece for these individuals, these high earners, these pro athletes, and numerous examples of making it where I have had clients pass away tragically young, and just that life insurance money or that protection that the wife or the kids get, they're usually in tears because they feel protected. They feel like their spouse or their father did exactly what they were supposed to do to protect them.
Okay, so we've been talking about a lot of things. We're talking about protecting yourself, some potential tax situations, some very, very overarching topics or issues or problems that we can run into as players or high-profile positions. I want to throw it back to you guys now. If you were to leave one thing with these guys as just one major takeaway coming out of this segment, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the estate planning side, and keep in mind that we're talking to people that have had a rapid ascension, from nothing to something. And so a lot of times I'll be sitting across the desk from a client in that scenario, and they're talking these high-level plans, and they're all great plans, and we have those conversations. But then I have to say, wait, have we talked about the basics here? if you were to die, what's going to happen to your money? If you're going to die, what's going to happen to your family? Are they protected? Do you have plans for how to take care of them? Have you thought about who is going to be making decisions if you're in an accident, you're in a coma? Who's going to be making medical decisions for you? Who's going to maintain the status quo for you and for your family during that period of incapacitation? And so oftentimes I have to bring them back down to the basics and have them think about those decisions. So what I would say is, there is such thing as the basics, and those are what happens to you if you die, what happens to your assets if you die, what are the tax ramifications of your death, and who's going to take care of your family, and who's going to make decisions for you when you cannot for yourself. And so having made those decisions is so important. And then on that foundation, you build the entity formations, the asset protection, and the tax planning. And so it's so important to lay a stable foundation to build on in these scenarios from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly right. Earlier I used the word invincible. What I really mean is, what happens if something that you don't expect to happen happens, right? That's the basics. That's what we plan for. As James mentioned, even something as basic as what if something happens to me and my spouse? Who's going to raise my kids? What money are they going to do that with? How much tax are they going to have to pay? And even on top of that, thinking about what is my legacy going to be?
Right.
Not just legacy financially, but what is my legacy going to be as far as the way that my family perceives the way that I acted and behaved and set things up while I was living. So I would say that my broad takeaway is what we do is we help people plan for the unexpected.
And what's important to remember is that if you do not make these decisions,
Right.
the state of Texas,
Right.
the county of Collin, whoever that is, some governmental agency is going to be making these decisions for you. So it's so important that you take ownership and that you make those decisions ahead of time, so that it's we're not having to leave it to some elected judge to make that decision for your family. That's up to you as the head of the household.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One of the overarching themes of what all three of us have been talking about today is intentionality and control, and really having a plan. And so with that, I'm going to kick it back to you, Cory. If you were going to have a basic takeaway kind of in this same vein, what would that piece of advice be to these guys that we're talking to today?
On the wealth management side is the same thing. It's basics, man. Basics are what make people great, and you guys know this from playing ball and going out and doing the same thing every single day. The best guys in the league, or the best players, or the best people in business, are the ones who do the basics really well. And so for me personally, that's understanding your cash flow, right? What's happening in my life right now? And when I say cash flow, I mean, I do this on the first of the month with every one of my people. I do it personally in my own life. I look back at my past month and I see what money I made, how much money I spent. Is that negative or is that positive, right? Am I in the green or am I in the red? And oftentimes we're in this situation right now, right? We're in the green in a big way, which is awesome. And so, okay, now we have to assign that. And so if I understand the behaviors, basic behaviors of my accounts, and I've dove into my player 401k, I understand my player annuity, I understand my player line of duty, or any other benefits that are available to me or that I'm getting from the league, or any of those immediate things that are part of your life right now. If I understand that, you're immediately setting yourself on a proper foundation for better growth down the road, right? And so today, if you don't take anything away, what I would love for you guys or anybody else to do is personally go in and sign into your accounts. Go check them out and just claw around. And I tell people, like, first of the month, all I want you to do is swim in your money. Go swim in it. Not like Donald Duck, or not like what was it?
Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck, right? But tell my age on that one. Not like physically. That would hurt diving in that big thing. But just getting in. And so, I'll get in. I go in my bank account, and I go in anything else that I have that money is moving from, and I add it up. How much am I spending? And then how much am I making? All right, and then I see it, and I'll project it out and say, okay, if I spent this same amount in the same year in this for the next 10 years, how does that look?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to still have the money, or am I going to not? Right? And if football stopped at the average career of 3 years, or maybe if I played 7 years, I played 6. If maybe I played 10 years, play those out a little bit and put them down on paper and really give yourself a visual as to what my life potentially would look like. And if that's not how you want it to look, change it. All right, get with somebody to help you change it. And if it is, awesome. God bless you. Keep on that same track, right? But there's a basic for me is just understanding your own accounts and what you're involved in and the behaviors of your money. Because if you understand that, you can tell it what to do. It's the biggest thing. And I love kind of an overarching theme. What I love is what you're talking about, leaving a legacy. I love the proverb, a good man leaves a legacy to his children's children.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. And what that ultimately means, though, is if I've taken away, you're talking about somebody passing away and leaving it to their heirs. If I've stewarded and I've taken care of my life in the right way, I've created wealth that lasts way beyond my life, right? This affects the decision making of my children, of their children, and I've immediately made their lives more wealthy in the process, not just financially, but through knowledge and through how they behave and how they act and operate in their own life. So now I want to flip to one thing with you guys. One thing that's really powerful is you guys' story. I know, but I want you guys to jump into this, and really this is kind of your why on why you're doing what you're doing. But tell me a little bit about your guys' personal background and where you come from and how you got into this.
I mean, a lot of times we'll sit down with folks and they'll say, well, two brothers or law partners, your dad must be an attorney as well. And so we explained to them, no, Matt and I are the first in our direct family to become an attorney. In fact, our dad, his background was in printing. He was a printer by trade. But growing up, my dad was in the ministry and he did side jobs. He did drywall and construction and things of that nature. And he started doing printing for a church that he was working for. And so he learned kind of the basics for printing. And so keep in mind, we grew up in the Austin area. And so as my dad became more proficient as a printer, he had a friend that was working for a particular computer company in the Austin area who encouraged him to start bidding on some of these jobs that were with this computer company, printing the diskettes and the manuals and things that came along with these computers. And so my dad, at the time didn't have a shop or anything. We had a press in the garage at our house. And so he started bidding on these jobs and he started getting them. And he sort of learned the art of bidding on these jobs and was doing really well. But I remember times growing up where he'd come home from work just beat down, but he had this job he'd got to get out. And so we'd eat dinner as a family, we'd do our homework, but we'd sit around the kitchen table putting these, what he called kits together. Mm-hmm. So kits where we put, an instruction manual goes here, a diskette goes here. And so we create these kits that my dad would then turn around and take to this computer company in the morning and deliver it to them. So, we really learned what it's like to hustle and to work hard. And that was instilled by our dad and our mom. And so it was a really interesting experience. And so you want to carry it a little bit?
Yeah, no, and I think that the real relevance here is that we know personally what it's like to grow up and not have very much money. And then my dad built this printing company and then ended up doing well with it and sold the company. And then all of a sudden, we had money that we didn't used to have. And so we know personally what it's like when people start coming out of the woodwork. Can I get a loan here? Can you hold the note on this piece of real estate for me? I'm starting this business. Can you give me some money? Because we saw that happen in our own lives. So that's really why we have a passion for people who maybe just came into a whole lot of money and really helping protect them from some of the pitfalls that we've seen in our own personal lives.
And what was really interesting is that a lot of people from the outside looking in were observing this, and they saw us from building kits on the kitchen table to my dad growing this business to one of the fastest growing printer in the United States for several years running. And so they saw this formation, and as soon as that business sold and we bought a nicer house and that money hit the bank account, it's like certain people felt like they were entitled to that, or they started gathering around to get their share of it. And so we noticed that, and we were younger at the time, so it wasn't necessarily as apparent as it was to our parents, but it was interesting. And so now we kind of have this experience under our belt and know what it's like for that to happen. And as we're having this conversation, I was thinking about when I was in high school, and we would go around with my friends, and we would go fill up the pickup truck to go somewhere. We'd be in a friend's truck, and we'd pull up to the gas tank, and everybody would look at me, and they just expected me to fill up the gas tank. Yeah, because they knew our situation. They knew we lived on a nice ranch and things like that. And so we know what it's like to come from nothing to something, and everything that comes along with it. And we're very fortunate that our parents were such that they instilled the humility in us, that and the gratefulness of we're not entitled to anything, that you work hard and you preserve it. And so that's just a really important part of why we became attorneys, is because we want to help other people do that.
Right.
And we want to help equip and empower people to make good decisions along the way, but also to protect them from the things that could come, that comes with success and money. So Cory, tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and perhaps draw on some of the experiences from your past that maybe have led you to where you are now, and perhaps contributed to why you do what you do.
Sure. Yeah. It's like present day, man, I got my wife and I got my two beautiful baby kids, man, my girl and my boy. He's like an ape right now walking around. And my girl's got the grip to rip the throat out of some dude if I need her to. But, growing up, I was middle of three boys. Still am, technically, right? But middle of three boys. And my folks split around 8, 9, 10 years old. And so we ended up, both of them remarried. We had big families or mixed families. And so we moved around a lot when I was growing up. And so after that, during that period, during a 4-year period, I went to 7 different schools, which is tough on a kid at that age, right? Because you're moving around, making friends, and we move, and I make a friend, and we move, make a friend, and we move. And it's kind of a tough place to be in, but coming in, that's where football ended up being a real big family for me, because I found out I had a gift. A guy invited me to play, and which is a whole nother story. I thought he was going to beat me up, but he invited me to play, and ended up putting me in a family, and found out I had a real awesome gift, and set me on a path that was totally different. And so it was really, really great. But my folks, we talked about splitting and going through their different ways in life. I told you, my dad always said I had no problem making money. It was holding on to it. And he was a veterinarian, large animal, worked on horses and cattle and stuff. And so I still call him when I have problems with the dogs, But, yeah. And so, those conversations and seeing some different things that had happened in our life, and having conversations with my parents, are like, all right, where those pitfalls have been, without sharing all of it. I knew from those conversations and from some of those experiences, those were some places I didn't want to go. And so I kind of went way more frugal with my money. And so a guy that I played with, 3-time Pro Bowler, was a great guy, great mentor to me, ended up introducing me to my advisor. And I remember at the time I had about $800,000 sitting in my savings account. And he was the first guy to ask me. He goes, what are you doing with your money? And I'm like, brother, I'm watching it stack up in the bank. I'm fine. I'm okay. I'd never had this experience before, right? And so I was cool. And he was the first guy in a long line of people that I still have today that said, you need to put that to work. You need to figure out a plan for it. And so I did. And so I got with my advisor, and that's why I say 10 years removed from the league, I'm in a way better place today than I ever was playing football, because of decisions I made 10 years ago. And you don't think about that necessarily right when you're in your 20s or even a teenager. But when we anticipate and we act in that way, it ends up being a really powerful thing. And what I did not realize is it gave me freedom in my life. When we talk about, so many people struggle with finances, right? What's one of the number one causes of divorce is money, or one of the number one complaints, or one of the top complaints, right? I never want me to fail in an area that I could have prevented. Right? And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I can't prevent anything, but I will not have money be the reason for a problem happening in my marriage. Right? I will not have money being a reason for me not being able to do something in my life. I set out ahead of time to make way more intentional decisions, but because I came from a place where we didn't have much money and I knew I wanted to be different coming out of that place, I ended up stewarding it or making decisions according to that ended up freeing me in a different way. And what I want is that for other people. What I love about here in Texas, man, if somebody trusts you, they love you, and they see you're a good worker, they want you to make the money that they've made.
Yeah.
And they will tell you every bit of their story to make sure you learn and make those same steps in a great way. So you can accelerate your learning and accelerate your growth past what they had, right? And that's what I want to do for people. Is I want to tell you my story. I want to learn you up in what you're doing right now and tell you the pitfalls, right? Because if we can avoid the pitfalls, that means we can go to the winning places.
Yeah.
I want to go to the river that goes to the place of honey. I don't want to go right to any negative areas. And so if we can avoid as much negative and we stack up wins in our lives, ultimately we're going to be way more powerful in the end. And if I love this from, you sent me a message not too long ago. If I can multiply other men, or if I'm not multiplying other men, how are they to multiply me? Right? Ultimately, if I'm multiplying other people and I'm creating sharper you're going to create a sharper me, and I'm going to end up in a great place just as a total side effect to that. And so that's why I do what I do, because it releases power into my life, and it immediately releases power into yours when you act that way too. And so I love that. It's a huge, huge, powerful place in my life I like to step into, and I will never step the other way. I'll keep going in this direction. And if you guys are interested, obviously you can look me up. Go to my website, procapitaltx.com, Pro Capital Wealth Management. You can just Google it if you want to. You can Google me, look me up, Cory Procter. You'll find plenty of information, all right? But also, where can these guys find you?
Yeah, no, you can go to our website, is yourtexaslegacy.com. Talking about legacy, that's what we're in the business of, yourtexaslegacy.com. Our firm is called the Davidson Law Group. Obviously, we're the Davidson brothers, Matt and James. We have offices all over North Texas, and we've also been known to travel to you. So, yourtexaslegacy.com. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you learned something today. We had fun.
Yeah, sure did.
We enjoy talking about this stuff. So, go out, and if you want to contact us, you know where to find us. Thanks, guys.